Hi, welcome everyone to the Ask Dr. Renee Show. I'm Dr. Renee, and today we have Dr. Rovinia Brock, better known as Dr. Ro, with us today. Our show here is to motivate and inspire everyone to live the life they deserve. And if anyone is doing that, that would be Dr. Ro, because of all the information. I'm sure you've seen her on Dr. Oz, Anderson Cooper, most recently Meredith Vieira. She is America's Nutrition Coach. That is the hashtag. So if you want to try and tweet us questions, hashtag America's Nutrition Coach, hashtag Ask Dr. Renee Show. But hopefully you will learn more about more than just nutrition, but you'll learn about Dr. Ro and how she became Dr. Ro. So Dr. Ro, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure to be with you.
Oh, thank you. You too. Many people have seen you on all the shows that I named already, but most people do not know your story. And I find your story to be very fascinating because it's once again a story of somebody who came from humble beginnings and look what you've created now. So you grew up in the DMV, correct?
Yeah, I did. I grew up in Lee Droit Park near Howard, where Howard University sits. But at one point I lived in Southeast because I lost my mother to stomach cancer when I was 9, and as a result, my guardian who took over for her, we had to move to the Southeast projects. So, I've lived both, in DC, in Northwest, and in Southeast, in the hood. So yeah.
So you were so you were an only child, and your mother was a single parent?
Yeah, so my mother was a single parent who had me very late, and yeah, I am technically an only child. I have siblings who are by blood my cousins, but we grew up as siblings because I was an only child. And I have an older adopted sister as well who became my adopted sister because my mother basically just kind of took her under her wing when she was like a 17-year-old college student at Howard University. I mean, you know how black people do. We'll just take your children and we'll raise them and care for them and love them. And so, my family is no different. So, my mother knew the year that she was pregnant with me that she was diagnosed with stomach cancer. And so she makes a deal with her best friend that when her time comes, she will take over for her in rearing me. And with the help of my mother's family, that's exactly how my life has gone. My guardian raised me, and I had her with me up until about, 15 years ago. So all of my adult life. So you could say, I had two mothers. I had one that was kind enough to take over for my biological mother when her time would come, and I lost her to stomach cancer, the most devastating event of my life to this day.
I can't even imagine. Can't even imagine, especially at such a young age.
Yeah. I mean, my mother's a single parent, so she is the person on whom I depended for everything, including precious life itself. So suffice it to say, the first 9 years of my life were a great big classroom because she used every moment, every waking moment as a teachable moment because she knew that we wouldn't have that long together.
Wow, that is amazing, especially for her to find out so, at such a early age for you, and the fact that she did live that long, that is wonderful.
Yeah, so, it was a blessing.
I'm sure. So you grew up and you were in the projects. How did you foresee all of this? Like, how did you get here, basically?
So, I have to tell you that my time in the projects was a living hell. Okay. When we were moving in, I think I was about 12, and that is the day that I learned the difference between being poor and being broke. So my mom says to me, first of all, our house backed up to an alley, and we're standing in the alley, and the movers are moving our stuff, our meager, belongings into the house. And I look at the house, and we're in the back of the house, and I see for the first time in my life, rats boring holes in the ground under our house about as big as I was. I mean, I'd never seen anything like this before. And shocked, I say to my mom, Mama, we are poor. And she says to me, we are not poor. What we have is a temporary cash flow problem. I mean, you know, mamas can, and particularly black women can certainly, you know, dress something up to make a, you know, they can turn a pig into turn a sow's ear into a silk purse. So the point is, she says to me though, and this is very important because this is how I got here. She says, we are not poor. She said, there are people who live here who have and will live here for generations because they don't see themselves anywhere else. They don't see their way out. This is a temporary stopover for you. You will go to college just as I promised your mother I would see to it, and you will not live here for the rest of your life. This is only a temporary, you've not come here to stay. This is just where you are. So she says, so we're not poor, we are broke. What we have is a temporary cash flow problem. So I learned at the age 12 that there is a difference between being poor and not based on your mindset. It has everything to do with how you think. Because if you see yourself as hopeless and no way out, then that is precisely where you'll put your attention, and that's where you're likely to be unless you can change your mind. And so I understood that, okay, we weren't poor, we were broke. But rats as big as I was were boring holes under my house. And I have to tell you, there were times when I lay in bed at night, you know, as a kid, and I could hear mice like scratching in the, you know, behind the wall. I could hear this like going up and down the house. So, but never saw myself as poor. And so, you know, that's how I got here. I never felt like I belonged. I never fit in. I never felt like I belonged. And I remember one time she said to me, well, how come you're not outside, you know, playing? And I said, I don't belong here. And she said, please don't say that out loud. Don't talk to people and tell them that. So, because she knew in the projects I was likely to get my butt beat. But there you go. It's all about, you know, how we think. I think that makes a world of difference in terms of people who succeed and those who don't.
I totally agree. I believe in the secret, as they said with the book and everything. It's really, you have to think things, and you can think things into existence.
Absolutely.
So, you know, and everything is it's a temporary situation. You know, you're not a product of your environment. You have to make things, you know, different. If that's what you want different, you got to make it different.
Yeah, I lived in the projects. I don't consider myself, I was in the projects, not of the projects. There is a difference.
Right, right. So I think that's a thing to learn at a very young age. As you said, it, you know, probably guided you and was in the back of your mind your entire life, and you were able to, you know, maneuver yourself.
It was in the front of my mind. It was in the front of my mind. Oh. I knew, you know, I knew my place in the world then. You know what I'm saying? But I also have the great blessing of having come here from birth almost, knowing exactly what I wanted. You know, like my mom and my mother before she died would tell me that, you know what, you've always known what you wanted. You know, when you were, I think I was like 3 or 4, my uncle, my mother's brother, says to me one day, and I actually remember this. He says to me, I got a nickel for you. And I looked him dead in his eye and said, I want the big nickel. I want a big nickel. What I meant was I wanted a quarter. I didn't want a nickel. And they had to teach me the denominations, you know, they had to teach me, you know, what the various coins meant and what they were called, but I was clear about
Okay, it was frozen for a second there, but we're okay
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
Okay.
But you know what? That's funny because in the movie Poetic Justice, Janet Jackson said the same thing. Somebody was giving her change when she was little, and she said she wanted the big nickel.
Are you serious? Oh
Yeah,
my
I watched the
God.
movie.
Oh my God. No, I'm light years older than Janet Jackson. But it just goes to show you, great minds think alike, and there really are no new ideas. you know? Yeah, there really are no new
Right.
ideas. I'm just glad that there are, more people in the world who think better of themselves and who know that regardless of what your circumstances are, they don't define you. I think that's the biggest lesson up from this. Your circumstances do not define you. And if in fact you happen to be, as I was, in the projects today, it has nothing to do with your prospects nor your possibilities for where you can be tomorrow. That's it.
Definitely.
Mhm.
So, what was your major in college?
So I went to Virginia State University in Petersburg, Virginia, and my bachelor's degree was in foods and nutrition. Um, Many years later, I would say 6 years out of undergrad school, I worked as a nutritionist in hospitals and in nursing homes, and so in clinical settings for 6 years, and then went to graduate school at Howard University and got a master's degree and then a doctorate. I was fortunate enough I'm the first and I think only person to have received a double master's in from Howard. Mine is in community nutrition and broadcast journalism, because I was the first person that came to my school that said I wanted to take my nutrition skills and take them to a television set so that I could help more people and serve on a broader level. And out of that grew, now you never know. So if you believe that there is a power greater than you, and I certainly live by this, and that your circumstances don't define you, then you know that through that power, there's a greatness that resides in you. But we can't necessarily foresee the future, right? So I had always wanted to get a doctorate. And I knew my last job before going to graduate school, which I quit so I could go to graduate school, and by the way, only had enough money to get through the first year and had no clue how I was going to finish the process. Um, yes, yeah. There's a whole story behind that too, but I know it's only an hour show. So I'll speed to the fact that as I'm finishing my doctorate, my master's, I am told, I want you to, my mentor slid Dr. Johnson, shout out to Dr. Johnson at Howard University in the Department of Nutritional Sciences, because you changed my life. You and Dr. Atkins literally changed my life. So he slides this piece of paper in front of me and he says, I want you to fill this out. And I said, well, what is this? So it turned out to be an application for the Patricia Roberts Harris Doctoral Fellowship. It's for the hard sciences, because I had the GPA. And one of the reasons I had the GPA, because the condition on my going to Howard and getting into the graduate program in nutrition was that I had to make a 4.0 for the first year. And then I could get, scholarships and teaching assistantships, and that's how I got through. So I had this GPA. By the time I was finishing my master's, I think my GPA was 3.98 because I had gotten a B and nearly went berserk. So I know. So I had the GPA, and I competed for and successfully was awarded the Patricia Roberts Harris Doctoral Fellowship. So what that means is I got a doctorate from Howard for free. Now, if you look back at me as a Virginia State student, I remember in my junior year, I said to my best friend, I don't want a job. I want a career. I want a career. So, and I wanted something more than just work in hospitals and nursing homes. Though working in a clinical setting as a dietitian is a very, it's good work. Dietitians are doing good work. But I wanted something more. So I was thinking research. But the point is, I knew whatever I was going to do, if I had a doctorate, I'd be in a better position to do it. And as God should have it, that's just the way, you know, my life and my career has turned out. But when I told her that, I had no idea how I would get a doctorate. I just kind of put it out there and went on living my life, and then this shows up. So, you know, the point is, whatever your dreams are, you know, don't poo-poo them away, and don't ever give up on them, because you never know what that power that's greater than us all is doing, working behind the scenes to help you get there. And I'm living, breathing proof of that.
Write it down, make it plain.
Yeah.
And I mean, remind yourself, that's what vision boards are for. I even have a mind movie. I don't know if I told you about that. It's basically a video of a vision board kind of a thing.
Cool.
And it has this song. The song is Dream Big by Jasmine Sullivan, which Dream Big is our tagline for the entertainment company. And then Dream Big, that's my life. I dream big. And so it just literally has all the facets. It has a wedding picture. It has my future vehicles, my house, and the kids. It has everything. It's so cute. And then it has pictures with people, you know, lining me up for what I'm trying to do. It has pictures with me and Wendy Williams, me and Sherry Salata. So it's a, you know,
I love it.
It's something I watch it. It's really short. It might be 2 minutes long, if that. And I watch it, and it just, you know, reminds me where we're going, how we're going to get there. And then I have a vision board that I see every day when I wake up. It's in my bedroom on the wall. And it reminds me, you know, I want to be, you know, 40 under 40 in Black enterprise, entrepreneurs, and, you know, just different things. And actually, I've been knocking things off of it. I wanted a radio show, knocked that off. What else did I have on there? There's a couple other things that I put up there that I have accomplished. So it's slowly but surely happening. But you're right. You have to have a vision. And I mean, you know, unfortunately, there's so many dream killers out there. Sometimes it's not worth telling anybody because they're not going to encourage you. But write it down, and for yourself, as long as you know, and just keep going.
Well, you know, Renee, the thing is, you can't give yourself, your life, your dreams over to people that you would consider dream killers. I mean, one of the things that I think I did, and I'm not sure that I did it consciously. There's just, on some level, my spirit, you know, knew to do it. I surrounded myself with people who uplifted me. And I've always had people like that in my life. But it's just common sense to me that you want to spend your time with folks that uplift you, that are of a like mind. Like if you're going somewhere and someone's remaining stagnant, that's not who you want to hang out with. You know what I mean? So I've always sort of been with those who were moving in the same direction that I was. And always my friends, you know, are my friends because we lift each other up, you know, and we encourage and support each other. But you don't have to necessarily be a close friend of mine to get encouragement and support, because I just feel that's what we're all here to do for each other as human beings.
And I totally agree, which is why we have the Ask Dr. Renee show, because I want to motivate and inspire even just one person to understand that you too can live your dream. And I mean, I've had several people on the show that started from nothing, and they've created these, you know, $1 million empires.
Yes.
It's not, you know, it takes hard work, but it can be done. And I think that life is too short. You know, I lost a relative this week, and life is entirely too short to not live it right now. My big thing is this is not a dress rehearsal. You know, I did live, I think, probably a good, maybe right after I turned 18, probably like 10 years, where I kept saying, well, when I get to this point and when I become a doctor and I finally figured out, forget about when, I just do it now.
Yeah.
What are you waiting for? You have to do it now. And then I was like, oh, well, I'll do that one day when I have a husband. No. Just go do it right now.
Yeah.
It'll be great one day when you have a husband,
you can't be responsible for having a husband. You know what I mean? You can only be responsible for Renee, for Dr. Renee. And what Dr. Renee chooses to do with every moment of our lives, we're responsible for, not just the moments in the future. We don't even have those to count on, right? So you've heard this many times before. The moment that we have for sure is the one that we have right now. So at some point, you've got to get in the flow with what's happening now. And, you know, what you want in the future will come. And because of that power that's greater than you and I and everybody that's watching, it'll be even better. It'll be even bigger. It'll be even better than you could even conceive of. So I'm all for living in the now. I'm all for encouraging others. You know, there's this book by Don Miguel Ruiz called The Four Agreements. And the first agreement in that book is to be impeccable with your words. So that means you think very carefully about the things that you say to people. And so I wouldn't, you know, tell another person, don't do this, which is the dream killing, you know, spirit that you mentioned before. Hey, you may not be equipped to do this. Who am I to tell somebody what they're equipped to do? You know, it's my job to say, hey, if you like it, I love it. You know, I say, let's go for it. Because I believe the power lies within all of us to do that which we want, to live the lives of our dreams. But you just can't sit around wishing and hoping. I mean, you've really got to put some work in.
Exactly. Faith without works is dead.
Yeah, you have to put the work in. My mother, who I lost, at 9, as I said before, said to me, one day when I was 6, so we're in D.C. and we're standing in front of a store and there's a pair of Glen plaid blue and green tennis shoes that I wanted. And there were 3 different styles. But anyway, what I remember is I looked at these shoes and I said, my mother's name is Lavinia, which is why I'm Rovinia, but I said, I want those shoes, Vinnie. I want those shoes. She said to me, you want those shoes? And I said, yeah. And she turned to me and she says, well, you know, there really isn't anything that you can't do, be, or have as long as you're willing to work for it. And as long as you're going to be my daughter, you're going to have to be, do, and have something. My mother was an entrepreneur. So, So at 6, I learned that I could have whatever I wanted. I had to be willing to put in the work. And that's how life has gone. And
definitely,
that's how life
it definitely has.
Yeah, and that's how it still goes. I still have to put in the work.
So you graduated from Howard. Did you immediately get into television as you wanted to, or what happened then?
So I went to Howard because I wanted to do television. So I had this goal that, you know, at the time I looked at television and there were 3 doctors, all male, all Caucasian, no females, no people of color, and they were on television. Dr. Art Uline, Dr. Joe Novello, and Dr. Tim Johnson. You'll remember Tim Johnson. Timothy Johnson was ABC. He was the medical correspondent for ABC. He did. Yeah. So these 3 guys, and I think Art Uline was NBC. Right. So I looked at them and I thought, you know, I'd like to be the voice for my community that gives disinformation. You know, diabetes, obesity, all of the diseases and conditions that plague us today as a whole country today were plaguing us at a much larger rate, you know, in the African American community. Now, it's not that that isn't still true, but what is true now is that the whole country is suffering. It ain't just us. So, which is not, it doesn't make me happy, but right. You know, I think for a long time, you know, I was a health reporter. Okay, so that's Simba, my Cocker Spaniel. You'll forgive him. So I was a health reporter, a health correspondent, a medical correspondent. I went to Howard and they put together this, Simba, stop it. They put together this, they allowed me to do a double major at the master's level, which had never been done before, so that I could use my nutrition degree and combine it with a broadcast journalism degree. And so both the nutrition department and the Department of Radio, TV, and Film allowed me to combine these two disciplines and put them together and get a dual degree. But I chose Howard because Howard University has one of now two Black-owned and operated PBS stations in the entire country, in the whole country. Howard University has its own FM station, which is a big player in the DMV, and has its own, student newspaper, the Hilltop. But I was interested in doing television, so I had been taking graduate courses at the University of Maryland and decided, you know what, this isn't where I need to be. And so I call up the Nutritional Sciences department at Howard, and we started a conversation about my going to Howard to pursue my degree. But I went to Howard because I knew that they had the environment for me to grow my skills, for me to hone my skills, for me to learn it. And I knew nothing about doing television, as a matter of fact, before I went to Howard to do my master's degree. And I was in something called a student training program in the School of Communications and under Mr. Jim Brown, who headed this program up. And I went and told them what I wanted to do, and they said, okay, let's go. And my first assignment was, I've got to produce my own series on prenatal nutrition, and it's going to be a part of my master's thesis project. I mean, I have to go out and test it, on pregnant women in the hood and in clinics all over. And you just don't roll up on a sister in the hood and say, look, I'm going to need you to look at this video. I'm going to need you to eat some greens. I'm going to need you to stop smoking, and get some exercise so we can have a healthy outcome. I would never forget, one young lady said to me, look, my grandmama told me how to eat. I don't need this. I'm like, well, okay then. But we were able to do it. I was able to pull it off, make it happen. It was a good study, and it now sits in my thesis in the Library of Congress. So there you go.
So you did how did you go from doing the health reporting, health correspondent in DC? How did you go from there to the Heart and Soul? Because Heart and Soul was the first show, right?
Well, no, actually, I was a medical correspondent for BET News before Heart and Soul was even born. And the way I did it was, I went to CNN and I was an intern, at the master's level. I was an intern. But because I had already been doing television at WHUT, which was before WHMM, which is Howard's PBS station, I learned how to do TV at Howard's PBS station, and that led me to an internship in the Nutrition and Medical News Department at CNN. Shout out to Carolyn O'Neill, the first ever nutrition correspondent for America at CNN, who said, yes, come, I will take you as an intern, right? So I go there and I learn to do, news, on a huge level. This is the Washington Bureau. And unlike other interns, I was allowed to go out and actually do interviews for stories that were going to air on, on CNN. So, my first crew didn't want to go with me because an intern is supposed to have a producer with them, and I was not going with a producer. And we did our first interview at FDA, and at the end of the interview, they said to me, we'll never doubt you again. We get it. So, I had the blessing of that experience. And then one day I go to BET, and at the time, the vice president for news and public affairs, God rest her soul, her name was Deborah Tang. And I owe her a whole bunch, even a husband. So, but I say that because I met my husband at the first ever BET Awards after party, and it was she who sent me there. She and Bob Johnson sent me there. So all that to say, I go and I gave her a tape of a reel, and she first of all, she has time to see me, which is unusual, that the vice president of news and public affairs can even see me. And to show me how the blessing of my timing, she walks me to a closet. After we do the interview, she walks me to a closet and shows me a closet full of tapes that went from the floor to the ceiling. And she says to me, you have the blessing of good timing, because you see all of these tapes. I don't know how you got in here ahead of all of these people. I don't know where you came from. I don't know how you got here. We have never had a nutrition correspondent, a nutrition, we have never had this, but I'm going to take a chance on you. And that's how it all started. She took a chance on me.
Now, how long was Heart and Soul up?
So I became the nutrition correspondent for BET News. I became a medical correspondent for BET News. At one point, I was even a general assignment reporter, and my first assignment was walking the beat with crack transvestite prostitutes. Go figure. Because I'm doing a story on crack as a health problem. I don't know. I had some real experience, some interesting experiences with that job. But Heart and Soul started in the late 90s because, they bought Heart and Soul magazine from a different magazine group. Now, before they purchased Heart and Soul magazine, I take it upon myself to go back to Deborah Tang and say, hey, you know, I think Heart and Soul could be a television show. And so she says, well, I'm going to send you to Mr. Johnson's right-hand man. That is a person that you're going to, and I'll get you in so that you can make your pitch. So I go and I make my pitch. He says to me at the end of our meeting, he says, listen, we're working on some things. And should they happen, I'll give you a call. About 2 to 3 weeks later, I open the Washington Post, and on the front page, it is Bob Johnson and BET acquire Heart and Soul magazine. And at the time, it was a whole magazine group. YSB, Heart and Soul, and Emerge magazine. And I thought, shouldn't we be talking? So I call him and say, look, shouldn't we have a talk? Because he couldn't tell me. I guess they were in the process of acquiring the magazine. But, you know, I go back to him and meet with him. And actually, this is how God works. I had already pitched this before, right? So now I'm doing my second pitch, and I have an opportunity, and it looks like it's a go. But they were actually going to hire someone else to do the job that I did. But what God has for you, I just want to say this, nobody can take from you. And so when I heard that, and they were going to have me be like the sidekick to this person, okay? And I thought, gee, okay. But what God has for you, again, nobody can take from you. So the next thing I hear, the same Deborah Tang is in negotiations with this person's representative, and the negotiations fall flat. And she says, somebody get me Dr. Rowe in here. And that's how it happened. Again, there's power greater than you and I. And if it means for you to have, do, or be something, you will have, do, or become it. Nobody else can mess with it. Nobody.
That is so true. So how long was that show?
So Heart and Soul lasted for 3 years, and at the end of the third season, and we were building, you know, it's the first show ever for African American or women of color, right, who dealt with health and beauty. It's a magazine show. It was a great show. And we were growing in our viewership, and not only were women watching, men were watching. I met my husband on the dance floor at the after party of the first BET Awards. He knew who I was because he watched. But all that to say, the network was sold to Viacom, as we know now. So now Viacom owns BET. And in that process, a lot of those shows, all of the shows for the most part, went away in the process of their sale. And so that's the reason why BET's Heart and Soul no longer exists.
Well, that was a great show because I watched that show faithfully and knew who Dr. Rowe was. And so this is the story of how I met Dr. Rowe. I was volunteering at the Pantene Total You Tour at the Erie Crown Theater in Chicago. I mean, at the McCormick Place. And I knew she was a panelist, so I was like, I am going to meet Dr. Rowe because she was the only black woman doctor I had ever seen on television. And I always knew that I wanted to be the Dr. Nancy Snyderman of Good Morning America, but Nancy didn't look like me. But I knew I wanted to do that. And I said, well, this Dr. Rowe, I was like, oh, my God, she's going to be there. I have to meet her. So I moseyed my way because, like, they had the VIPs, of course, in a special room. I moseyed my way over there, and Dr. Rowe was hoarse and couldn't talk. So everyone had warned us of that, too, and I was like, oh, well. I walked up to her. I said, hi, my name is Renee. I'm a huge fan of yours, da-da-da-da. And she's like, oh, nice to meet you. And I was like, okay, well, that was my meeting, Dr. Rowe. Okay, whatever. So that was that. And then fast forward, Twitter comes out. And everyone knows, I swear, every one of my guests, there's some story with social media. Twitter comes out, I follow Dr. Rowe, I tweet with her, and she responds, and we're going back and forth. And one of my girlfriends here in Chicago, when I was introduced to her, I'm like, you just look so familiar. And she couldn't figure out how I knew her, and I couldn't figure it out. And one day, I don't know how it came to be, but I figured it out. She was on Heart and Life, God. That's where. And she's like, really? I said, I remember you. And I go, you have a very different name, J&J. So yeah. I'm like, it's not like everyone has that name. I would remember, and that's how I know you. And she's like, that is so funny. So you on Twitter, and I'm like, okay. And I said, eventually I got to tell this woman that I know J&J. Well, somehow I end up telling you, I connect the two of you, and then you followed me on Twitter. And so Dr. Rowe comes to Chicago with Dr. Oz for this expo. And I said, oh, well, we should hook up. And I go to the event, and I wave, and we talk or whatever. And then she invites me to have dinner with her. I'm just like, oh, my God, this isn't happening. Does she understand? And then I told her how I first met her because she did not remember. I told her. And she's like, I remember that day. I was so sick. I was like, yeah. So, and we've been friends ever since. And Dr. Rowe is, she's amazing. She's so amazing because she knows so many people, and she knows this TV game so well. So she's been a great mentor, and I so appreciate you doing this for me today. But yeah, I loved Heart and Soul, and it should come on now because Lord knows especially the state of our health now, we really need it. But it was a fun experience. I think we made a difference. We helped to change a lot of lives. People would come up to me and tell us. And tell me, as I was traveling the country speaking, so the Pantene Total You Tour was like one tour, and then I was doing the Ebony Family Reunion Tour, and, I toured for probably 6 years straight, 3 with 1 or 2 tours, and then 3 with another tour. And so I was meeting a lot of people, and all of them had, fond memories and great things to say about Heart and Soul. They loved the show. They loved the magazine. And it was a great pleasure and honor for me to be able to serve in that way. I have to say our meeting obviously is fortuitous. You just laid out how it all happened. But, this is what life is all about, isn't it? We move in some of the same circles, and people of like minds, connect. And if there's someone that you set out to meet or someone that you like to, engage with, eventually it seems to happen. That's what the gods, do for us. So it's a great pleasure of mine to join you today because I remember when the Dr. Renee Show was a dream, and now it is happening. It's happening. So, kudos to you for sticking to your guns and holding your dreams near and then putting the work in to pursue them. And I know it's not easy. You have to do it all. You're the everything woman. I'm launching a new show, the Dr. Rowe Show, and I'm the everything woman. Even at this stage in my career, I'm doing pretty much all of it except hair. No, except makeup. So yeah, and shout out to J&J. She is a great love of my life. J&J
Walton was my producer on Heart and Soul. She and Mocha Lee, my co-host, and I share, birthdays, Inday's birthday is like a couple days ahead of ours. So we all are kindred spirits, and I love her to pieces.
Yes, she's wonderful. But like I said, BT I think is went in a different direction, but they might want to haul it back and do some more stuff about health and wellness again, maybe. But it would be a good idea, I think. But what do I know?
It's a great idea. I think so. Yeah.
So as Dr. Rowe mentioned, she is married to the wonderful Dr. Murray Riggins, and that was another small world that somebody that I knew him. That's so funny. But she and that's another thing is that I would like to get married one day. So she's the doctor, she's on TV, and she's married. So Dr. Rowe, you got married a little later in life, but you guys made it work.
Yeah,
you guys were in two different states.
I was 149 by the time I got married. But yeah, okay. So here's the thing. I was ready, I suppose, and I guess he was ready. He'd been married before, and I had never been married, but it was later in life. And so the point is, but this is what happened. This is what I tell you and other of my single friends. Everybody pretty much has a list, even though you might not claim that you have a list. So I guess I had a list in my head. But the first thing was I wanted the person to love me more than life itself. Not just because I was looking to be on the receiving end, but because I knew that I could return that, right? So I wanted somebody who treated me well, who had a great sense of humor. I wanted a person who was, who was educated and intelligent, but who also, could go from the outhouse to the White House, so to speak. You know what I mean? Who was earthy, who was down to earth, who shared my sense of humor, and who he and I could share our dreams and our life, together. And so who knew that in 2000, Mocha and I are walking around the dance floor at the BET Awards looking for people to dance with us. And of course, these are all these famous people here. I mean, Denzel is there, and Mary J is there, and Stevie Wonder's sitting over in the corner, and then, everybody's there. So LL Cool J's walking around with one pants leg rolled up. So the whole deal is nobody's like asking us to dance. But so when we run across these two guys and basically say, hey, you, come, we're dancing. And that's a whole other story about that. But when we finished dancing with these two guys, my husband and his friend, a buddy of his, who's also a physician, were in Vegas. That's where the awards were at the time, for a medical conference. And he had run into a friend of his that he went to Morehouse with, and that he hadn't seen in like 20 years or something. And the guy is playing golf with a big record exec, and the record exec doesn't want to go to the awards and all this stuff. And so he basically says, here you go as me. I probably shouldn't say this publicly, but that's how it happened. And I say that because it is unlikely in the first place that he would have been there, that he would have even been in attendance at the BET Awards, because you could not buy tickets to the BET Awards. You have to be invited. It is also unlikely that I would have been there. But this is the first ever BET Awards, and Bob Johnson and his team decide they want everyone who's ever hosted a show on the network in the history of the network, and they will bring you in from wherever you were in the world. I remember I wasn't even at home. I was speaking in Miami, and my manager says to me, well, it doesn't matter where you are. They say they'll bring you from wherever. So there's this huge weekend, and anyway, I meet this guy on the dance floor. We exchange, email addresses, because though he finally did tell me that he was a doctor, I was like, well, I don't know you. He knew who I was, and he knew everything about me because he watched the show. I was like, so here's my email address. And we have now been together for 13 years. So we will celebrate.
Okay, but You forgot the key part that you must tell, because of course this isn't real television, but the ratings would go through the roof. Who was the woman he was promised to meet?
Okay, so he came there. Okay, so he met this publicist at the where he goes to pick up the tickets, and the publicist happens to be the publicist of Kenya Moore. Okay, and Kenya Moore doesn't show up. She doesn't come. So he has come to the after party looking to meet Kenya Moore because he had a crush on Kenya Moore. And he comes, and the publicist said to him, "Well, who are you? How are you going to get in? You can't. You gotta be somebody to get up in here." That's what she said. And so when he goes and picks up his tickets, when he walks into the after party, the first person he sees is Kenya Moore's publicist. And he says, "Well, where's Kenya?" And so she looks at him like, "How'd you get in here?" He says, "Well, you got to be somebody to get up in here." So she doesn't show up. And so he and I meet. So this is a funny story. 5 years later, so in 2005, the BET Awards are in LA. And he and I go because it's like, hey, this is where we met, and let's go and celebrate, blah, blah. And so we're at the after party, and we're standing like right in front of the stage, and Alicia Keys is about to perform. And there are two women standing between us and the stage. One woman in this beautiful white dress, and she's very built, and she's lovely. And I looked, and I was like, that's Kenya Moore. And so I kind of tap her on the shoulder, and I said, hey, you're Kenya Moore, right? And she goes, well, yes, I am. I said, well, I'm Dr. Rowe. Here's a funny story. This is my husband, Dr. Murray Riggins. Now, 5 years ago, he came to the BET Awards to meet you, but you didn't show up, and I did. So, bam, I got the ring. So she almost, first of all, he wants to crawl in a hole in the floor because he is like, oh, my God, no, she didn't just do this. Kenya says to me, well, I guess you owe me a husband. So she was a great sport about it. That's my good Kenya Moore story, and that's the only one that I know. She was a good sport about it, and we just had a good time, my husband and I, for the rest of the night. And she was very kind and very gracious, and turned and met him and all that kind of stuff. By this time, the crush is gone. The thrill is gone because now I'm here.
Right. Of course. If there are any questions, please, if you're using Google+, you can click on the little white squares in the upper right-hand corner right there, and you'll see it'll say Q&A. When you click it, a column will drop out and say questions, and at the bottom it'll say ask a question. You can type in your questions. You can also try tweeting questions if you like, and I will do my best to try and get those as well. But if you don't have any questions, you don't have any questions. But if you like to ask some questions, answer some questions, here she is. Real briefly, we'll talk about, like, what are your 5 top, because, I mean, oh, my God, if you follow Dr. Rowe on Twitter, she tweets about what we should eat next all day long. Great information. I try to, but she gives excellent information. 5 quick tips. And also, she has an ebook. Is that ebook still available?
Yeah, so go to my website. Yeah, go to my website. This is what I'm going to do for your viewers. Go to my website, everythingrow.com. The word everything, RO.com, and download my book of tips on health, happiness, weight loss, losing belly fat, inspiration, all of that and more. Download my book of tips. It's called You, Healthy, and Happy. Download it for free on me. That's my gift to you today. And there's even a recipe in there for the greatest and the best salad dressing. It's the only one we use in my house. So go to everythingrow.com, everything RO, and download my free book of tips to you today. You, Healthy, and Happy.
Yeah, it's excellent book. I as soon as she put it up, I went and got it. But can you give 5 quick nutrition tips?
Okay, so the first thing is, fill your plate with half vegetables and fruit and the other half lean protein and sprouted whole grains, sprouted whole grains. So there's one thing, and I talked about this on the Meredith Vieira show last week. You know, a lot of people are cutting carbs because they don't want to get belly bloat, and a lot of the, you know, the carbs turning to sugar and all that once they enter your body. Here's what I suggest. Here's a way for you to eat pasta without worrying about the carbs, because these are actually the good carbs, and it's made from beans. So there's a black bean spaghetti. It's made with 2 ingredients, just black beans and water. That's it. And this is by Explore Asian. The brand is Explore Asian, but you can find it in Whole Foods, you can find it in Wegmans, you can find it all across the country, and you can find it at exploreasian.com. So include some of these grains in your diet, and you'll be blessed with not having to worry about them going to sugar. You'll get the energy from them that'll sustain you all day long. And the cool thing about this is that because this pasta is made of beans, it is 25 grams of protein in a serving. 25 grams, that's huge. That's more than many of your power drinks, of your, you know, supplements. So definitely do that. If you're going to do bread, go with my favorite brand is Ezekiel Bread, and it is because it's made of a sprouted whole grain. So that means it's unprocessed, and it will give you energy rather than turn to sugar once it enters your body. So eat this way. Half your plate or half your meal is going to be colorful vegetables and fruit. The other half is going to be 1/4 lean protein, so in the forms of chicken, fish, turkey. You can even use beans, especially eggs. You can also do eggs. You can also, and seafood. I mentioned fish. And nuts and seeds. And then the fourth quarter of that plate is going to be sprouted whole grains. Other thing is, drink half your weight in pounds in ounces of water a day. So if you weigh 150 pounds, I want you to drink 75 to 80 ounces of water a day. The reason is because not only will it hydrate you, it will also help to speed up your metabolism. If you are looking to lose belly fat, a couple of things. Get more pineapple and papaya in your diet. The reason is because they contain enzymes that actually help to fight belly fat. So does watermelon. It is rich in arginine, which is an amino acid which builds muscle. Now, obviously, you can't put watermelon and pineapple and papaya on top of a whole bunch of fat. So a big fatty diet. So you're not going to have a big plate of ham hocks and have some, a side of watermelon. However, if you include these foods, more of these foods in your diet, you can deal with the belly fat. You can help to lose belly fat. And the other thing is get a tea it's made of dandelion root. So dandelion root stimulates liver function, and it helps to clear out a lot of that belly bloat that you may be dealing with because the root of dandelion really does stimulate liver function and helps to remove toxins from the body. So traditional medicinals makes a roasted dandelion tea. Get it. I get it at Target. You can get it online. You can get it almost anywhere. Many of you can get it at your grocery store. So you got belly fat you're going to deal with, and you'll find a lot of these tips also in the book. So that if you get what I said, go to everythingro.com, everythingro.com, and download this book of tips and take it with you wherever you go. The other thing is eat more blue foods. So I'm talking blue potatoes, blueberries. Why blue? Because there are antioxidants called anthocyanins that go a long way to help you burn fat. And the more blue foods you eat, the bigger your fat burning potential, your body's fat burning potential. So blue foods. For anti-inflammatory action, which blue foods are also anti-inflammatory, but get more green vegetables and green foods in your diet. So any kind of leafy greens, doesn't have to be kale. I know that's real chic right now, but believe it or not, kale is not a new vegetable. So it doesn't have to be kale. So arugula, collards, spinach, spinach. asparagus, green vegetables. So get more of those because they are anti-inflammatory and they can cut down on the inflammation throughout your body. And if you don't like to eat them, make a juice. Make your own juice, okay? Or put them in a smoothie. How'd I do?
Great.
Okay.
That was awesome.
Okay.
Another little funny story. Dr. Rowe and I, when we went to dinner, we went to Bandera. Most Chicagoans are familiar, and she ordered artichoke. And I was like, and I knew in my head, this is one vegetable that my mother did not introduce us to. And for whatever reason, we just never had artichokes. And so she showed me how to eat them. It was pretty funny. That I think it was last year, my sister and I went somewhere, and I had to show her how to do it.
Great. See there? Life's just...
And you know, she's a foodie. So for the fact that she didn't know, I felt pretty good that I knew. I said, well, Dr. Rose showed me, and this is what you do.
Good for you. Good for you. Good for you.
So the last part here, these are questions that we ask every guest pretty much, and it's just interesting to hear the different answers. So did you ever imagine that this would be your life?
Some parts of it, yeah. Actually, I did. I imagined that my husband, the guy that I'm married to, I dreamt him up, and he tells everybody that he's the man of my dreams, but I realized that I actually did dream him up. What he looks like, I didn't have a vision for that because I don't put a face on love. It's whatever it turns up looking like. I know what it feels like, okay? I don't have to know physically what it looks like. That's not the issue. Though he's nice to look at, but that's not why I chose him. So yeah, I did have a vision for that. I would say long ago did I know that this would be my life? Absolutely not. I mean, there have been so many things that have happened in my life that I couldn't have told you that they would happen. But I would say the great blessing is that I was willing to go with it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Right? So you get these blessings and things happen and they seem to come out of nowhere. They really aren't, right? They are probably ordained for all of us. But to the extent that you're able to go with the flow and get in the flow, you can find yourself at a place living a life that is so much bigger than you ever imagined. And I would say that's what happened for me.
So what is the day in the life of Dr. Rowe?
Crazy. So, I mean, you know, I'm up in the morning. I have to get up at 6. I have 3 dogs. So it's a 3-dog night up in here. So we're up at 6. I have 3 dogs. So they have to be fed, walked, you know. It's also about, you know, having breakfast first thing. Because when you do, you find that you are less likely to overeat, and people who eat breakfast tend to be less heavy than those who don't. Because when you don't start off that morning with something to sustain you, it is likely that you'll eat more calories for lunch, dinner, and for the rest of the day. And it also means that you can you're more prone to having cravings too. And by the way, that is also true for people who don't get enough sleep. So try to get your 7 to 8 hours in. It's important. So it's breakfast. It's hopping on the treadmill or going or walking outside and working out outside. Like the weather is beautiful now, so I much prefer being outside when I'm not chased away by bugs and nature. So there's that, and then it's a lot of, it's meetings, it's talking on the phone. Many times it's rushing to the airport to get to New York to do a television show. It's a lot of that kind of stuff. And then it's writing. It's sitting, at the desk writing. I'm a writer. I have a book out, 10 Secrets to Livin Healthy, and I'm working on another. So, and as a business person, I'm always working on my brand and working on business for the brand. So there is lots of meeting, there's Skyping, there's FaceTiming, there's telephone calls. There's a lot of that all throughout the day. And then I make sure that I make some time for the guy that I consider my best friend, and that's my husband. So I make time, I make sure that we have some downtime together no matter what's going on. checking in on how was your day, him checking in on how mine was, and giving each other feedback and support and encouragement on, you know, continuing the climb. So that's what my average day looks like.
What is the lesson it took you the longest to learn?
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm still learning it. How not to procrastinate. Because I can, you know, as proactive as I like to think myself, I would tell you that if I stumble upon a task that I have to complete, that I perceive is going to be hard. Now, this is the thing. You can tell yourself a story and you believe it. Make sure you tell yourself good stories, stories that are true, stories that are good, stories that are beautiful. Because I will make up that, you know what, this is going to be hard, so I don't want to start to do it. So I'll just become paralyzed by the thought that I've got to do something that I perceive to be hard. And most of the time, I make these things up. Once I get into it, it's never as hard as I imagined it would be. So I would say learning not to procrastinate is a big, big lesson.
What is your definition of success?
I think it's individually defined. You know, for me, success is being fulfilled. I'm happiest when I'm making a difference. So I've come to realize that I really was put on this earth to make a difference. I think it has everything to do with why I do the work that I do. So I'm looking to inspire, to uplift, to motivate, like lots of people, so as many as is humanly or supernaturally possible. So I feel successful when I'm being productive, okay? So when I have the opportunity to help someone else, you know, do something better in helping themselves, that's success for me. I feel like I've had a successful, you know, time or day. I don't equate success with stuff, I have to say, because I've always been able to get stuff. I think that's the easy part. It's making a difference, I think, that is the bigger challenge, and I think the thing that takes the most emotional and spiritual energy, in fact. So I consider my success being able to make an impact on the world. That's how I define success for me. But again, I see the word itself as being defined individually.
Finish these sentences. The world needs
more love.
I believe in
God.
Love is
everything.
And branding is
good business.
Please let everyone know all your current projects and how we can support you in the future.
So I am launching the Dr. Rowe Show. It is a half-hour weekly show. Segments of it will be on YouTube, will be, you know, all over the internet, including my own website, everythingro.com, everythingro.com. We'll also tweet out segments. We'll post segments on Facebook. It's the most fun I have had in television in my entire career. Part of the reason is because I get to go undercover in a segment called Doc Undercover. And when I tell you I go undercover, I go deep undercover. I mean, you won't recognize me when you hear me speak. You won't know it's me when you see me. I'm changing genders, I'm changing race. I'm really flipping it. When I go undercover, I'm becoming a whole other persona. And it is so much fun. And this is the way that I'm interacting with the public and spreading the nutrition message. And so it's a lot of fun. I think it's useful information. And I think you'll find it funny too. So the Dr. Rowe Show coming to you late this spring. I am launching a new meal plan and coaching service. This is a whole different aspect to my business as America's nutrition coach. So I can become your coach and you can have meal plans done by me. I always subscribe to the notion that I want everybody to plan your meals for the week. If you don't have time, no problem. I've got you. I will now be doing it for you. I have a new app that's coming out with the meal plan and coaching service. So I'm really, really excited about this. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm working on another book. So there's a lot on tap. There's a lot of work to be done. And I'm having fun doing it all. I really am. And I continue to do, you know, the Meredith Vieira show. She's a hoot. I love doing the show. I love hanging out with her and her team. And I love, of course, Dr. Oz. So I continue to do that, too. I have a segment coming up on the Oz show sometime in the next month or two. Oh, and also look for my buddy who's a chef, Jeff. His name is Chef Jeff, who hosts a show called Flip My Food. I'm doing a segment with Jeff on Flip My Food. It's syndicated all over the country. It appears on a lot of Fox stations, but check your local listings. I will tweet and post on Facebook when this segment airs on Flip My Food, but it's a really good show. So I had a lot of fun doing that, so that's coming too.
Well, thank you, Dr. Rowe, for sharing your story with us this afternoon, and thank you, everyone, for watching. The show is here to motivate and inspire you to live the life you deserve. So I hope that you'll take the tips that she gave, because I know that I'm going to have to go back and read my book again, because I clearly didn't remember the belly fat thing. I was like, oh, wait a minute. But so I am going to go back and look back at that book myself. But definitely go to everythingrow.com. That is her Twitter ID. That is her her Facebook page she has as well. She has a fan page. But definitely, like I said, follow her on Twitter. She really does give a whole lot of great information, and it's quick tidbits that you could use. I mean, you know, what you do in the morning for breakfast as far as exercise, everything. She covers everything, health and wellness. So I really, really, really suggest you follow her on Twitter. Everything Row is her Twitter ID, but I will have that information below. And don't forget to go get the book. What's it called?
You Healthy and Happy. You Healthy and Happy. Download it on me at everythingrow.com. And when you visit Everything Row, you can just click on my social media icons and follow me right from there.
Bingo. See? Perfect. I hope that we've motivated and inspired at least one of you today. And please feel free to send me tweets, Facebook, whatever, and let me know if you know somebody that you think I should interview, as well as if you found something, you know, a tidbit or a quote or something that you liked about the show. Let us know. Put it in the comment box. Like I said, you can tweet me. Everything, all across all social media platforms, I am Ask Dr. Renee, AskDrRenee, like there is in my lower third here. And also, you can find the Ask Dr. Renee show via podcast on iTunes. We're working on Google Play. Not there yet, but on iTunes you can search Ask Dr. Renee, and you can subscribe to my podcast, and that will be all of the shows that we've recorded thus far. And it's free, doesn't cost you anything. So if you can't watch the show physically in front of the computer, then you can also listen to it whenever you want in your car, working out, whatever. But thank you, everyone. On Sunday we have another dynamic woman, Tanisha Jackson Warner. She is the CEO of Agami Consulting Group, and when I tell you she has quite a story, she has quite a story. She went from Alabama to New York City working with Russell Simmons, so it's a really, really interesting story. She has a book as well that's pretty amazing, so please tune in Sunday night at 9 o'clock Eastern Time, and we will see you then. Thank you so much, everyone.
Always a pleasure.